The portion for today actually begins in chapter 19. So it's called Parashat Chukat. And we're reading in 19:1 and 2. It says, "Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, this is the statute." So the word statute is the word chukah. And that's where we get the name for the portion for today. It's the first significant word of the portion. That's how it works. So you have a handle on it. However, we're going to be in chapter 20 today. And some of you may be a little surprised because chapter 19 is a very Levitical type of chapter. You know, speaking of the red heifer, right? I will find my way back to chapter 19. For those of you who don't know, this is an inside joke here. My daughter, who is turning 22 today, she gave me a nickname. So she called me the Leviticus nerd. I have been studying the book of Leviticus since 2001, and the reason I remember is because I began doing that right around 9/11. So I have a place in memory to go back to. And I'm still in chapter 16. So I think I'm averaging less than a chapter a year, right, since 9/11. So, but chapter 19 here in Numbers is a very Levitical type of chapter. And I was ready to teach it because, you know, it's a natural fit, but I never want to take things for granted in what the Lord wants me to teach. And so I went back to him and I said, you know, are you okay if I teach this chapter again? And he was like, why don't you read a little more? And the more I read, I realized, okay, this portion here in chapter 20 really is capturing my heart and his heart. And so I realized, okay, we're going to be in chapter 20. So Numbers chapter 20, it says, "Then the sons of Israel, the whole congregation, came to the wilderness of Zin in the first month. And the people stayed at Kadesh. Now Miriam died there and was buried there." Verse 2. "There was no water for the congregation, and they assembled themselves against Moses and Aaron." So we've seen this before. First time we saw this was Exodus 17. They had no water. They just come out of Egypt, crossed the Sea of Reeds, and they found themselves with no water in the wilderness. It's very, very tough. There are several names for the wilderness in Israel. It changes. The terrain in Israel changes dramatically. In 10 minutes, you drive 10 minutes and you're in a completely different terrain. And so this is the desert of Zin. You have you have about 5 different types of deserts just in the south of Israel. And this is one of them, and this is right south of the Dead Sea and south of Beersheba, if you've heard of the name Beersheba, the city of Beersheba. One of the cities that gets the most rockets, coming from the Gaza Strip. And so they are approaching ever so slowly towards the end of the 40-year wandering, right? And so as they are doing that, they're coming up north, and they're going to find themselves ready to cross through Edom, and we read that in the portion today. A portion today, I think, goes all the way to chapter 22. And so we read in a portion today how they approach Edom and then Moab, and then they're going to conquer some territory even before they cross. And we'll pick that up when we go through Deuteronomy in just a few weeks, because in Deuteronomy there is a summary of all this time and all their wanderings and how they arrive there and how they get ready to cross. So I want us to focus today then only on this portion about the lack of water. And I have a couple of things in my heart that I want to use this passage to speak to us as a congregation. So verse 3, it says, "The people thus contended with Moses and spoke, saying, if only we had perished when our brothers perished before the Lord." All right, so you can see it on the screen. This is how we roll here. We have the Hebrew on the screen right below the English. So you see I highlight the word contend. So the Hebrew is riv. We're going to see a play on words right in just a couple of verses. We're going to see a play on words on this word. A lot of the Hebrew behind the English does that. It's very punny. It has a lot of play on words, and many of them are really ironic. They're so in that sense it's the basis for wisdom literature. It's the basis for things like the book of Proverbs, where there's a lot of pun, not only in words but in life. A lot of ironic stuff. And so that comes actually from the Torah. Obviously, it comes from the heart of God. And so we're going to see here this play on words with this word "reeve." You'll see it in a little bit. But I want us to catch, because a lot of the irony that happens here has to do with what the people are saying, and which is another characteristic of biblical narrative. Every time that the narrator interrupts, he's speaking in third person, right? The people, they said this. Every time he breaks out of that to quote speech, to put it in quotation what they actually said, whether it's a dialogue or just an expression, a monologue, that is very important, because usually the narrator, in this case the writer, Moses, he places key information to understand the passage in the mouth of the actors here. So what is going to come out of their mouth is going to be very economical, very few words, but they sting. They set up the irony that happens, a lot of it here. And so he has that here in this verse. With Moses, the people contended with Moses, saying, here's what the people are saying, right? If only we had perished when our brothers perished before the Lord. What is this? Here, brothers is a reference to last week's portion. To Korah and his company, his group. The church split that they had, that they attempted to have here. And actually, what split was the earth, the land right underneath them, right? Very tragic. So imagine to be so off to wish this kind of wish. You've got to be so off to wish. I wish that lightning would have struck me and I would have just died right on the spot. It's like, are you mentally okay? At least emotionally, Let's find you some help, buddy. So if only we had perished. You know what this is? This is a death wish. This is a death wish. A lot of people fight this alone, in secret, in the dark, either suicidal or homicidal. They imagine their freedom if this person would die. If my husband would die. And we think we see that on TV, on movies and stuff like that, but it's real. But the Spirit of God wants to do such a work in us as to cleanse us. Because this is not a natural thought. This is not what a normal human being thinks where they go to. I wish my boss would just get in an accident. These are demonic thoughts. And they become thought patterns. So this can become a stronghold, something that hides and we don't know how to get rid of it. The Lord has power to reveal this and to help us come out of agreement. That's one of the things that is the most precious for us here at Sukkat. That the Lord has taught us how to help each other come out of agreement. Because all of this is just coming into agreement with the thought, with the demonic thought, with the suggestion of the enemy. We come into agreement with it without even knowing. And what's good about that is that it is just as easy to come out of agreement. To come out of agreement. And so that's what these people are doing here. They are entering, they're expressing this agreement. It is it so has a hold on them that they're not embarrassed to say it publicly. They've come to a level where they actually express, they're so bitter. We're going to see that in a little bit. They're so bitter. And they actually say it out loud. Wow. So they have this death wish. And look what they say in verse 4. Why then have you, I want us to pay attention to this, we're going to have this repeated, this pronoun you. They're accusing Moses and Aaron. Why then have you brought the Lord's assembly into this wilderness? It sounds very religious. We just care for the Lord's assembly. We care for the Lord's people. But you guys, you are the one really? Who brought Israel out of Egypt? Wasn't it the Lord? Remember the Ten Commandments? I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt. That's my name, my ID is I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. By the way, this happened on Passover, which really corresponds to Yeshua's death and resurrection, which corresponds to our salvation. Right? The event becomes more and more rich as history goes by because God has this intent to use this date and what it means to bring about these historical events of salvation. So they are accusing, they're really out of focus spiritually. So they are intentionally blaming people. So they're blaming Moses and Aaron. Why have you brought the Lord's assembly into the wilderness? Like they really care about the assembly, right? They have a death wish. They clearly, you can't love other people more than you love yourself. We never do. We don't love others more than we love ourselves. We don't. We love ourselves more than we love others. So if the way they love themselves is so poor, it's so low at this point that they actually have a death wish, how much more death would they wish you? Or wish the assembly, really. They don't have the assembly's best interest at heart. So it says, for us and for our beasts to die here. You brought us out here for us to die here. 5, why have you, again, made us come up? The word come up here highlighted because it's the word, we get the word aliyah. And it's the word that we use for when Jewish people move up and return to the land of Israel. They make aliyah. And it literally means to go up. If you go to Israel, you land in Tel Aviv, and then you begin to ascend, and you drive through all the mountains. and you were in Tel Aviv, you thought, oh, this is so hot, and it's so humid and all that. You're by the ocean, and by the time you get to Jerusalem, you're looking for your sweater. You go so high on the mountain, you literally go up to Jerusalem, and so it becomes an expression, right? To go from Egypt to Israel, you go up to the hill country. So why have you made us come up from Egypt to bring us into this wretched place? Look at the word for wretched. Ra. This is the word that we find in the Garden of Eden to describe the tree of the knowledge of good, which is tov, and ra, evil. This is the word for evil. So they're saying, you've brought us to this evil place. And look, they describe what evil means. Look, it says, it is not a place of grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, nor is there water to drink. They are correct. Good means to make fruitful. Good is to do something so as to make the land fruitful or to make a person fruitful. Evil is the opposite. So when they say this place is evil because there is no fruitfulness here, they're technically correct. Except that, number one, it is the Lord who brought them to that place. He brought them to the wilderness. And the wilderness in Scripture is the place where you hear God. That's what the wilderness is. It's the place where you hear God. It's all over Scriptures, all over Judaism. It's the place where you hear God. And you can be fruitful if you don't hear God and have His word implanted in you so that you can walk it out and live it out. And it has the word is the one that's going to have fruit in and through you. Amen. Right, Scripture, Galatians talks about being filled and walking in the fruit of the Spirit. But Colossians talks about being filled with the Word, which is the same as Ephesians being filled with the Spirit. So there is a similar identity with being filled with the Word and being filled with the Spirit to produce the fruit that we see in Galatians. And so you need to hear the Lord. And the way where He speaks is in the wilderness. So if you call the place where God has led you to speak to you, to make you fruitful, if you call that place an evil place, you're stuck. You can't see the purposes for which He brought you there. So you can get out of it. So you can graduate from the wilderness. So you just keep repeating the same wilderness experience, same grade. And you don't graduate. You don't learn what He's speaking. So that's where these people are at. They don't see fruitfulness, but they don't realize this is the basis for fruitfulness. From here, the Lord is going to bring us into the land where it will have the grain, the figs, the vines, and the pomegranates. And by the way, the water too. Water is the key here. Remember, they don't have water. So they are saying a lot of things, really bringing curses upon themselves, stating things that are just binding them further and strengthening the stronghold that death has over them. By the way, this also works with people who imagine they're going to die all the time. either of sickness or tragically, or, well, there's this problem in the family. No, this is what I'm going to die of. I don't think so. And I'm not saying I don't submit to the, you name it and it happens. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the enemy speaks. And if you enter into agreement with him, the good word, Proverbs says the good word is medicine. Well, what is the evil word? Sickness, right? So you're not creating this. You're just agreeing with the portion the enemy wants to give to you. Yes, ma'am.
What I was going to say is that we got to be so careful of what we speak. Hashem says be slow to speak and quick to listen. Because all we are doing is when we speak our words against ourselves, the enemy is all around and he's listening, and he'll bring it to fruition what you are speaking with your own mouth. You are really cursing yourself.
Yeah, we're entering into an agreement.
That's a terrible thing to do. So and this is why in the morning when we open our eyes, Baruch Hashem, we say to the Lord, this day unto you that I do what is pleasing in your sight.
Amen.
By his Holy Spirit to guide us in every moment of time.
Amen. Amen. Yes, sir.
When this is the next generation,
Yeah.
that basically Father pretty much pronounced a judgment on the earlier generation, and because they said we're going to die there, we won't be able to conquer, we won't be able to. And some of the things they're saying is really repeating what their fathers have said, and they're young, and now they're getting older, and they've got the same mentality, the same spirit. The same mentality, spirit on them that their parents had, and it's got to be broken off them because it's a familiar spirit that's following them.
Yeah, it's a stronghold that was learned at home, right? And that also teaches us. So verse 6, then Moses and Aaron came in from the presence of the assembly. Notice the word presence, panim. Literally it means the face. From the face of the assembly, the people there. From facing them, we could say. To the doorway, they come to the doorway of the tent of meeting and fell on their faces. Same word. Huh? This is a great response. They are starting really well. Take this to prayer. We're going to see, obviously, this is not going to end well for Moses and for Aaron. But they're starting well. This is how we should do it. Take this to prayer, right? It says, then the glory of the Lord appeared to them. Now, what's the glory of the Lord? His brightness, right? His presence is known in one way is because he shines. So here we have a hidden reference to his face. So we go from the face of the congregation to Moses and Aaron falling on their faces in prayer to the Lord manifesting his face, shining his face, as we read in the Aaronic blessing, Numbers 6. Like, may the Lord bless you and keep you and shine his face. So that's a reference to may the glory of God shine over you. And so we see here the glory of God appeared to them. They were allowed to see. The word ra here, appeared, is the word to see. And so they were allowed to see his glory. Verse 7. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the rod, and you and your brother Aaron assemble the congregation. Now, you may recall this rod when Korach and his company, they mount a rebellion against Moses and Aaron, and they said, well, we too are holy. We can come and go into the Holy of Holies. And the Lord said, well, bring each of you a rod. And what we're speaking of here is a branch that you've already turned into a staff. And so that's probably a better word, as staff. Which means this is absolutely dead wood. And so it will be a miracle for a dead piece of wood. Imagine your furniture all of a sudden putting out flowers and fruit. You freak out. And that's what happened here in essence. This is a piece of wood that has already been dead. But it flourished. So that actually speaks of resurrection. That speaks of resurrection. It's the resurrection power of God. And through that power, he showed, I have chosen Aaron, not you guys walking in rebellion. And so the instruction was, keep this rod, this staff, and put it in the Ark of the Covenant in the Holy of Holies. So here the Lord is saying, take the rod, go into the Holy of Holies, bring it out, and you and your brother Aaron assemble the congregation and speak to the rock. We know what's coming, right? And speak to the rock before their eyes, that it may yield its water. So you shall thus bring forth water for them out of the rock, and let the congregation and their beasts drink. So look at the word bring forth. You shall bring forth water for them out of the rock. How easy is it to bring water out of the rock? Only a miracle, right?
Yes.
But look at the word bring forth. In Hebrew is the word yatzah. Oh, some of us know what this word means, right? This is the regular word used all over Scripture for the Exodus. Okay, so how do you explain this then? Well, you see, imagine just like Israel was trapped in Egypt, and God, through his resurrecting power, delivered them. In a way, so is water trapped in the rock. And the resurrection power of God can bring this water out. Now remember, Paul says in Corinthians, the rock was Messiah. The rock was Yeshua. And he says, if you believe in me, out of your inner being will flow a river of living water. So if living water can flow out of us, how much more does it flow out of him? Right? So the rock, the resurrection power, the water, all speaks of Yeshua. So here, Yatzah is the regular word for the Exodus. So that brings, this is what the Hebrew does as well, the Hebrew language. That this makes an allusion. And what it does, it brings to mind the whole context of the Exodus.
Sure, I don't want to get ahead, but this is something I've never really understood. So they broke the prophetic picture, right?
Yeah.
By striking the rock instead of speaking to it.
Yeah.
Did that change what happened with Yeshua, or it just, the picture wasn't perfect any longer?
No, they did this twice. The water, the first time God instructed him, hit the rock.
Right.
The second one, he wasn't supposed to.
Right.
And so yeah, speak to it. So in the first one, we see Yeshua's affliction, how he was stricken, right? He was supposed to be stricken only once, right? He does not need to die again. Hebrews speak of that, right? And so Moses messed a little bit with the picture, but God is a big God, and he can handle that. That's not But this brought some consequences to Moses himself. So hopefully we'll get there. All right, so this is how you should bring water for them out of the rock and let the congregation and their beasts drink. So Moses took the rod from before the Lord, meaning he went into the Holy of Holies and he brought it out, just as he had commanded him. And Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly before the rock. And he said to them, "Listen now, you rebels." Uh-oh. Number one, the word rebel, marah. You may recall, if you were with us back in during the Passover, we ate the maror, the bitter herbs. This is the same word, marah, bitter. You who are bitter, you bitter ones. Problem though is, he wasn't really supposed to. Let me put it this way: what came out of Moses was out of the abundance of his heart. Unfortunately, this time around, this had happened so many times, but unfortunately, this time around, it really got to him. I don't know if he was burned out. I don't know. Maybe he didn't sleep well the night before. I don't know. But that day was not a good day for them to do this to him. And he snapped. Even if it was just verbally, he just snapped out of them. So he started out well. He fell on his face. He took the matter to prayer. But when he got out, he had not completed the process of dealing with this in his heart. So he still was bitter against them. They had accused him so much. You were the one who did this. You were the one who did this. It's really tough, really tough.
I think he's disappointed because the second generation is doing the same thing with her.
Yeah. Good point.
It's cyclical.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what, Rabbi, it's amazing how we don't learn as a people.
Yeah.
We just see the lesson before what happened. And here where God said, okay, let's go. And we repeat the same. And as a people, sometimes it amazes myself. It's just
I know. Which really highlights the Lord's mercy and compassion. His faithfulness, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Of course, leaders are judged by God twice as much.
Yes.
And unfortunately, leaders go through all this all the time. Look at this generation. Look at what's going on with President Trump.
Mm-hmm.
People that are against him. So it's just leadership is, we need not to be so quick to be a leader.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you
Yep.
better judge that twice before you enter into that role.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not easy.
Very true. Very true. Verse 11. We have about 5 minutes. Then Moses lifted up his hand and struck. This is he struck the rock twice.
Yes.
The word struck here, nakah, it really means to kill. Cain rose up against his brother and he struck him. This really is to kill. David struck a lot of people, and he uses that word all the time. It's to kill somebody. And so Moses brings this is important for us to see that Moses brings a measure of death. Death is all around this passage. They have this death wish. They're speaking in death against Moses and Aaron. This bitterness gets to Moses. This time he's unable to really get that out of his heart completely. It stays with him a little bit. He speaks to them in death, and then he acts in death.
But
So, I'm sorry.
he also caused the death of an Egyptian, which caused his walk to begin.
Yeah, right. But I'm in this
Just saying,
particular
yeah, we-
episode, yes,
But we
this
see his
particular
anger in that
episode,
process, just as
Correct.
we see his anger now.
correct. And Yeshua said, even if you get angry against your brother, that's murder. So we know it's just a measure of death here, very, very real. Yes.
Is that word, like the root and all that, is that related to Chukat?
I don't know at this point. Yeah. But and I'm trying to land this plane because I now only have 2 minutes. and this is really important for us to understand what happened. He strikes the rock. There's a measure of death happening there. And that's really the key to what happens with Moses. He strikes the rock twice. It says, and water came forth. God was faithful.
His grace.
His grace. Water came forth, yatzah, like in an Exodus, abundantly. And the congregation and their beasts drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you have not believed me, or you did not believe me, to treat me as holy. That's the key. To treat me, to sanctify me. How did he not sanctify the Lord in that episode?
Disobedience.
And he said that we are gonna bring you out.
All right, I want you to pay attention to what I'm going to say, because this is a different paradigm. What is holiness? Holiness is to overflow with life.
Okay.
I don't have the time to get into all the whys. You who've been in this study for some time, you know where this definition comes from. So you're going to have to watch the videos online, keep coming, all of the above. But the definition of holiness is to overflow with life. That's why you are separated from sin, separated from the world. But you see, the concept of separation, it's like just having one side of the coin. The reason, separation is the effect. Being filled with life is the cause. Because God is filled with life, he's completely separate from sin. What good does it do in society, in my neighborhood, in my family, for me to be separated from sin? Holiness is to love people, to overflow with life in such a way that I love people, that I'm joyful. It's funny, we don't usually say, wow, this guy is so joyful, he's so holy, because we don't make that connection. But that really is the manifestation of life, that you have peace, you have patience, you don't get upset easily. That's holiness. It's the manifestation of the fruit of the Spirit of life. Moses, though, brought a measure of death when he struck the rock. Death and life found themselves in conflict once again in Moses' actions. And death will never win that battle. So Moses lost that battle because he entered into an agreement with death, and he manifested this death in his life, in his actions, and he went against the holiness of God. That's the reason why. It's not that God, is so particular that, wow, you're serving for 40 years and just one little thing he does, and no, it's so much more profound than that. Theologically profound. There was a conflict, and Moses was supposed to be to know this more than anybody, for him to spend 40 days twice with God in the mountain. A fallen, sinful person in the presence of the holy God. He understood holiness. And in that moment, he failed at it. That's the reason why. Does that make sense?